I'd like to invite my brother Steve Anderson forward at this time. One of the neat things that has been happening in the life of our church this year is several different short-term missions trips. And so Steve is just now getting back from Cuba. And so we got a chance to send him off a couple of weeks ago. And so Steve, we are excited to hear how your trip went. We're glad to see your face again. And tell us a little bit more. You can sit or stand. There's your clicker, and I'm going to ask you to hold the mic so we can hear you nice and loud. Yeah. So, can you welcome my brother Steve up here this morning? Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I went to Cuba, and this past week I watched a documentary on Cuba for like an hour and a half. So I'm basically an expert now. So there's a lot that happened. It was life-changing. And I've got 10 minutes to tell you all about it. So instead of like rushing through everything, there's just some key highlights that I just wanted to communicate to you guys. Instead of here we go. Okay, I'm just going to go into it. So this is where Cuba is, guys, in case you didn't know. Santiago is where I went. Santiago is on the southern part, and the first... Thank you. And the first part, Cuba, you're not really allowed to go to Cuba, kind of communism style and all that. So 6 months ago, the embargo opened up, and we can get to Cuba. That was pretty cool. My dad has a really good friend named Dr. Brent, and Dr. Brent, he's a full-time missionary, and as soon as he heard that, he went over to Cuba. And the first thing he did is he went there and he just and he met with some pastors, and he was like, hey, what can we do for you? What is the best way that we can help you? How can we love you the best? And that was the first thing. That was like all throughout the week, and I really liked that because it wasn't like us going in and being like, yo, we're going to help you and this is how. You know, it wasn't like this is our plan and we're going to no, it was much more like servant mentality. And I just really saw Jesus in that. We would just wanted to help them and support them in any way possible. So that was like really big, just a servant leader. And Dr. Brent was just that the entire week, just wanting to help them and serve them. So that was really impactful. So their biggest need was roofs. So we got a huge, big group of Texans together, and plus me, and we went to Cuba to help them build roofs. Going back to the whole communism thing, they put restrictions on building new church buildings. So you have to... you can't build a new church building, so you have to use your existing church building, and the construction there is super sketchy. So their old church buildings are fallen down, dilapidated, super bad, and so that's what they need. Their biggest need was putting new roofs on their two churches that they had because they just couldn't have services in there. One of them didn't have a roof at all. The other one was just wooden, totally infested with termites, super dangerous, super bad. So that was their biggest need. And Dr. Brent goes back to Texas, grabs a bunch of guys. I don't have time to tell you how I got on board, but I got on board, and we started just helping them out. And so this is the first church. I was in Santiago, and then there was a little one in St. Louis that we also did. But this was the first one we went to. And so this is our group, and our goal was, I can get an aerial view right there. This is kind of what we're dealing with. The middle wall had to be completely demolished, and then you see the cement pillars on that side need to be extended to the left, and then we're going to be putting the roof on. This is us demoing the wall. This is Joel. And going back to communism, the materials are super limited there. Every material that shows up, the government can just take it and do with it what they want to have done with it. And so the people don't really have access to some things that I kind of really took for granted. So the inefficiency there, we had to demo this wall and we didn't have a sledgehammer. And we have 9 guys and we're looking around and we're just making do. We had to kind of make a sledgehammer and stuff. And so that was really big. It's kind of, during that, it was just inefficient. And so standing there, and I'm used to like working with my dad, construction, you pull up with your vans, you open the doors, and it's like, bam, bam, you got tools here, you got drills, you got saws, and we just get to work. And in here, we couldn't work the way that I was used to working. I was just kind of like holding up, and I was like, wait a second, we don't have enough shovels? Wait a second, what? And then we had to load this onto a dump truck and get it out of here. We didn't have a wheelbarrow. We had 2 spackle buckets. And so we assembly lined these, probably 20,000 pounds. This is us finishing it up. And he's like my height. So that's like 3 feet tall. And this thing's probably like 15 feet deep. Just completely full of rubble. all by hand, all with spackle buckets, assembly line. It was like so much work. And the entire time I'm thinking of, wow. And then this is the biggest part. If you look at those are steel springs back there. The driver comes out and he's like, Spanish, 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 Spanish. Translation, don't put another stone in the back of my truck. We are so overloaded. This is really bad. So this is what it should look like. Those are the front springs of the car, or the truck. And that is the back right there. So completely compressed. Don't do it anymore. So we were like, okay. And we drive to the dump. This is us at the dump. And that's Roberto on the left. He was our Cuban helper. And so the dump truck doesn't dump. There's no dumping of the dump truck. We had to do it all by hand. And so we got there. It was like 7 hours, completely exhausted. And we get to unload it by hand. And there's this tarp over there. So all of us are kind of like sitting in the back of the dump truck, throwing it out like stone by stone through these windows. And we got two guys in the back just trying to shovel it out the back as fast as possible. And the whole time it's just like super dehydrated. We ran out of water, and it's just so hot down there. And so this is all just to say that, wow, it was so much work. But the perspective of these guys from Texas, just laughing and joking the entire time, and it was just so fantastic because the worst possible circumstances, and they were just here to serve God, you know? It doesn't matter what you were throwing at them, they were just serving God, and I absolutely love that. And the Cuban perspective is they live with this kind of inefficiency, this kind of lifestyle, that's just normal to them. And their perspective of, well, it doesn't matter the cards we've been dealt, we're going to make the best of what we got. And so these two Cubans that were helping us, they were the most hardworking people, and they just rolled with it. And so I really gathered that from the guys from Texas, just here to serve God, and the Cubans, they're in this. They experience this every day, and it doesn't matter. They're going to serve God as much as they can in the environment they had. So that was fantastic. And we just had a blast. They're all just joking, having fun, and it wasn't... you didn't even have that perspective of, oh, man, if inefficiency, oh, man. No, it was just like, you know what? We're serving God any way we can. And that was awesome, having a blast doing it. So the next thing is family. I've just noticed this throughout my life with the Cubans and with the Texans. When you get Christians together, you connect on such a fundamental level. You have the same worldview, you have the same perspective, the same foundation, and your entire life is centered around the same thing. I love that. And that's what I experienced in Cuba. I didn't know these guys. The Texas guys were strangers. I just met them. And the guys from Cuba I didn't know. But we just connected on such a fundamental level. We were family. We were serving God. And we loved Jesus. And that was another highlight for me. It was just like, wow, I don't know you, but I love you. So the second part, actually before I get to this, I wanted to talk about another just quick moment. Beans and rice the whole week. That was basically it. And the Texans were just rolling with it, having fun. But Dr. Brent gets up there, and halfway through the week, he just said something that I just absolutely loved. He was like, you know, guys, I actually specifically asked the Cubans not to treat us any better than them, not to cater to us in any way. I just want you to treat us like you would a fellow Cuban, you know? And so he turned to us and he was like, you know, you might be getting tired of beans and rice, but you know, you're coming from America. What a plentiful, wealthy lifestyle. And now this is definitely a lot more simple. But he just mentioned how Paul knew what it was to be in need, and Paul also knew what it was to be in plenty. So he's had both of those. And he found contentment in both the plentiful times and the needy times. And so he just challenged us. He was like, you know what? This isn't what you're used to, but find contentment in it. And I love that, man. I was just like, beans and rice, let's go. And that was so beautiful. And so he just kind of said, treat this week as a fast from your plentiful lifestyle. And so I took that, I kind of ran with that. I really like that because I have so much wealth here in America, and there's just so much plenty in little things. And so, like the internet, they didn't really have internet. There's kind of like sketchy internet Wi-Fi hotspots near like hotels, and you have to pay for it. And so I was just like, you know what? I've been connected my entire life. I've been so in the loop. I'm just going to disconnect for the week. I'm going to treat it as a fast for my plentiful lifestyle. And so that's what I did. And to the chagrin of my mother, sorry, Mom, she's like wondering how I'm doing, and how's Cuba, Steve? And I kind of unplugged, so I probably should have told her that. But that just, by disconnecting from like the internet and disconnecting from everything with America, it allowed me to just plug in and connect into Cuba. I was present in Cuba. My heart, my soul, my mind, everything, not just my body, was in Cuba, and I was invested there. And that was fantastic. It's because taking a fast, from my perspective of America, it just really just plugged me into Cuba. And I was able to be there in the moment, in the present. And that was fantastic. All right. Okay, so the last thing is this roof. So all these guys from Texas are massive. And so I'm one of the smaller guys. And so they put me up on the roof to start building the roof because I'm lighter and I won't cave in the roof. And so the last thing, there's a lot of stories here. I can't tell them at all. But I just wanted to express that God used me. I was useful. He placed me there. And I don't have time to go into all of it. But God put me in a place where I can make an impact. And that was just fantastic. I was impactful, and I was able to do things in Cuba, and God used me that he wouldn't have been able to use anybody else but me. And so it was just fantastic. We're putting on the roof here, and then the second day we finished the roof, and we capped it off. And these are some of the women here just seeing the roof and the lighting for the first time, and they were just so happy. So I wanted to take a picture of that. And then afterwards, this is the finished product. We did all the lighting down there. We put a new roof on their building, and we moved everything back in, and all the wiring's done. And it was fantastic. So that was just so cool to see that. It was just like a praise God moment. And so I took a picture of that right before we had service on Friday night before we went. So I got two things left, and two of the biggest things, actually. The first one is God used this week to show to me, just to clarify. It wasn't like a lightning bolt moment, but it just clarified for me my desire to be a missionary. Just such an impactful week, and it just kind of solidified that for me, that God has put in my heart a desire to be a missionary. And this week was huge. This is just the life-changing part, is that was so awesome. So that's the first thing. And the last thing is just a massive thank you to Mount Bethel for supporting me and sending me out here. I'm just so grateful for this opportunity, and you guys are just, you allowed me to have this, this life-changing moment was because of you. And, I just love that. I went into Cuba expecting to change lives, and my life was changed. So, thank you.
Thank you, brother.